My name is Elnora, and at 67 years old, I thought I knew what the rest of my retirement would look like. After nursing for 40 years in Michigan and losing my husband 5 years ago, I settled into a quiet routine in our three-bedroom house. My son Thomas would visit every Sunday for dinner, and I cherished my independence. That Tuesday afternoon, when he showed up unannounced at my door, I had no idea how my peaceful life was about to be turned upside down. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if you've ever had family move in unexpectedly. Trust me, you'll want to stay for what happens next. I remember that Tuesday so clearly now. The spring air was perfect for gardening, and I had spent the morning tending to my roses. My husband Harold had planted them for our 30th anniversary, and I maintained them meticulously after his passing. It was my quiet time, just me and my thoughts with the occasional chit-chat with Mrs. Peterson over the fence. After lunch, I settled in my favorite armchair by the bay window with a novel I'd been meaning to finish. The doorbell rang around 3 o'clock. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was surprised to see Thomas standing there shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Thomas, is everything all right?" I asked, immediately concerned. His smile seemed forced. "Everything's fine, Mom. Can I come in?" I ushered him inside and offered him coffee, which he accepted with unusual enthusiasm. While preparing it in the kitchen, I noticed he kept glancing around the house as if taking inventory. We sat at the kitchen table, making awkward small talk about the weather and his kids' school activities. Then, mid-sip, he blurted it out. "Mom, my wife, the kids, and my mother-in-law are going to live here. They're cramped in the apartment. There's no point in complaining, it's already been decided." I nearly choked on my coffee. The cup trembled in my hand as I set it down. "Thomas, what are you talking about? Your entire family living here in my house?" His eyes couldn't meet mine. "We lost the apartment, Mom. I lost my job at the firm last month, and we can't afford the rent anymore. Stephanie's mother needs care after her hip surgery, and we're struggling. It'll just be for 3 or 4 months until I find something new." "But Thomas, this is sudden. We should discuss this. There are considerations." "Mom," he interrupted, his tone suddenly firm, "there's nothing to discuss. It's already been decided. We need this. Not, 'May we please stay with you?' Not, 'Would you mind if we moved in temporarily?' But, 'It's already been decided.' As if my opinion in my own home meant nothing. "When?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "Today. I'm heading back to get them now. We've packed the essentials." Before I could process what was happening, he was already standing, keys in hand. He gave me a quick peck on the cheek and was out the door, leaving me sitting there stunned and silent. As his car pulled away, panic bubbled up inside me. My peaceful retirement was about to be shattered by a house full of people. People who I realized with a sinking feeling hadn't even asked if they could stay. To understand why this announcement hit me so hard, you need to know about Thomas's family. His wife Stephanie was always somewhat distant. We were cordial, but there was always an underlying tension. She was 38, worked in marketing, and had very specific ideas about how things should be done, especially regarding the children. The twins, Jack and Lily, were 8 years old and full of energy. Sweet kids, but I hardly knew them because their visits were rare and brief. Stephanie always had an excuse: soccer practice, piano lessons, playdates. The truth was, she limited my involvement with my grandchildren, and Thomas never stood up to her about it. And then there was Margaret, Stephanie's mother. I had never actually met her. She lived in Oregon until recently, and from Thomas's occasional mentions, she was opinionated and particular, just what I needed: another strong personality under my roof. After Harold died, I had worked hard to create a new life for myself. Tuesday bridge club with the ladies, Thursday volunteer work at the hospital, my garden, my book club, my space, my rules, my peace. The house felt too big sometimes, yes, but it was mine, filled with memories and arranged just the way I liked it. I spent the rest of that afternoon in a frenzy preparing for their arrival. I changed sheets in the guest rooms, cleared space in closets, and tried to childproof what I could remember should be childproofed. All the while, a voice in my head kept saying, "This is wrong. You're being taken advantage of." My friend Barbara called during my cleaning spree, and I found myself pouring out the whole situation. "Elnora, honey, you're letting them walk all over you," she said bluntly. "Thomas is a grown man with his own family. It's not your job to solve their problems, especially not when they're being so disrespectful about it. But they're family. I countered weakly. Family respects each other. Family asks permission. Family discusses major decisions together. Her voice softened. I know you want to help them, but you need to set boundaries or they'll take everything you have to give and then some. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, Harold's picture in my hands. What would you do? I whispered to his smiling face. I could almost hear his response. Stand your ground, Ellie. Help, but don't be a doormat. By evening, I had made up my mind. I would help my son and his family, but there would be rules. My house, my rules. It seemed fair and reasonable. Little did I know how quickly even that small assertion would be challenged. They arrived just after 7 that evening, their minivan packed so full I wondered how they all fit inside. As soon as Thomas parked, the twins burst out and ran straight into my house without so much as a hello, their sneakers tracking dirt onto my freshly vacuumed carpet. Jack Lily, be careful. I called after them, but they were already thundering up the stairs, squealing about which bedroom would be theirs. Stephanie emerged next, designer sunglasses perched on her head despite the setting sun. She gave me a quick, insincere hug. Elnora, thanks for this. The kids are so excited. Before I could respond, she was directing Thomas about where to put things, completely taking charge as if this move had been planned for months with my full cooperation. Margaret was last to exit the vehicle, leaning heavily on a cane. She was taller than I expected, with perfectly coiffed silver hair and an expression of perpetual disapproval. So this is the famous house, she said, looking up at my home of 30 years. Smaller than I pictured. Are there grab bars in the bathroom? I need grab bars. Nice to meet you too, Margaret, I said, extending my hand, which she shook limply. It's Maggie to family, she corrected. Those steps look treacherous. Is there a bedroom on the first floor? There's my study, but perfect, I can't do stairs with my hip. She brushed past me, making her way inside. The next 2 hours were chaos. Boxes and suitcases everywhere. The twins running from room to room, touching everything. Margaret inspecting my kitchen cabinets with thinly veiled criticism. Thomas avoiding eye contact as he carried in what appeared to be half their apartment's furniture. When I tried to show Stephanie where they could store some things in the garage, she cut me off. Actually, Elnora, we were thinking the twins would take the guest room, Thomas and I would use the master bedroom, and you could move to the smaller bedroom. It makes more sense for space. I stared at her speechless. My bedroom. The one I shared with Harold for decades. The one with the perfect view of the garden. I don't think that would work for me, I managed. Thomas appeared then, his expression pleading. Mom, it's just temporary and our king bed won't fit in the other rooms. Dinner that night was a tense affair. The twins complained about the chicken casserole I'd prepared. Margaret asked if I always used so much salt. Stephanie spent most of the meal texting, and Thomas seemed to have suddenly developed an intense interest in his plate. After everyone had settled in for the night with me still in my bedroom, one small victory, I retreated to the bathroom for privacy, turned on the shower to mask any sound, and finally let the tears come. As I was leaving the bathroom, I overheard Stephanie's voice from the guest room. Your mother will adjust. This is our house now. Our house. Our house. The house that Harold and I saved for 20 years to buy, the house where we raised Thomas, the house that was fully paid off and solely in my name. I went to bed that night with a knot in my stomach and a growing sense of dread. 1 week turned into 2, and I felt increasingly like a stranger in my own home. My daily routine was shattered. I couldn't enjoy my morning coffee in peaceful silence because the twins were always racing around before school. My afternoon reading was impossible with Margaret watching soap operas at full volume in the living room. My garden was being trampled by impromptu soccer games. Small disrespects accumulated like stones in my pocket, weighing me down day by day. I opened the refrigerator to find my carefully prepared leftovers gone, replaced by takeout boxes and juice pouches. My favorite teacup, a gift from Harold on our first anniversary, was chipped and placed back in the cabinet as if I wouldn't notice. The thermostat was constantly adjusted without consulting me, leaving me either sweating or shivering. The water bill doubled in the first month from lengthy showers and constant laundry. When I tried to gently establish some guidelines over breakfast one morning, suggesting a shower schedule and asking that my personal items be left alone? Stephanie exchanged a look with Thomas. Mom, he said in that patient tone adults use with children, there are 6 people living here now. Things can't be exactly the way you want them anymore. I understand that, but we need to be flexible, Stephanie interjected. The twins have specific routines that work for them. What about my routines, I wanted to ask, but swallowed the words. The final straw came when I discovered my bridge club ladies standing confused on my porch one Tuesday afternoon. I had completely forgotten it was my turn to host. I'm so sorry, I apologized, ushering them in. With everyone here, Oh, we know all about the family moving in, said Janet, my oldest friend. How's that going? Before I could answer, Stephanie appeared in the doorway looking annoyed. Elnora, we didn't discuss having guests over today. Margaret is trying to rest, and I have an important call in 15 minutes. My friends exchanged glances. We meet every Tuesday, I explained, feeling my cheeks flush with embarrassment. We have for years. Well, we should coordinate these things now, Stephanie said firmly. Maybe next week would be better. After my friends left, all but Barbara giving me pitying looks. I went to straighten the living room and noticed something missing. Harold's photograph, the one that always sat on the mantel, was gone. In its place was a modern, abstract sculpture I'd never seen before. I found the photo stuffed in a drawer in the hallway cabinet. When I confronted Stephanie, clutching the picture frame, she sighed as if I were being unreasonable. That space is more visible, Elnora. We needed it for something that ties the room together aesthetically. That old photo was collecting dust anyway. That old photo is my husband, I said, my voice shaking. Thomas walked in on our conversation. What's going on? Your wife removed Harold's picture from the mantel. Mom, we're just trying to make the space work for everyone. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. My husband, the love of my life, not a big deal. This is still my house, I said quietly. Thomas's expression hardened. Mom, I think you need to be more flexible. We're all making sacrifices here. What sacrifices were they making exactly? They had taken over my home, my space, my peace, and now they wanted my memories too. I returned the photo to the mantel. By evening, it was gone again. The truth began to unravel 3 weeks into their stay. I had been trying to give Thomas the benefit of the doubt about his job situation. He left the house each morning in a suit and tie, presumably for interviews. But something felt off. One afternoon, while everyone was out, I did something I'm not proud of. I called Thomas's former workplace, Hartman Legal, and asked for him, pretending I needed to drop off something important. I'm sorry, but Thomas Miller no longer works here, the receptionist informed me. He resigned about 2 months ago. Resigned. Not laid off. My suspicions growing, I began to pay closer attention. Thomas was evasive about his job search. Whenever I asked how interviews were going, he would give vague answers and change the subject. Then I noticed the mail, a bank statement addressed to Thomas that had been delivered to my house. I didn't open it. I still had some boundaries, but I saw the balance visible through the envelope window. It showed a recent large deposit, much more than a severance package would provide. The next discovery came when I was looking for a spare light bulb in the guest room closet. Behind some boxes was Stephanie's notebook. It fell open as I moved things around, and I couldn't help but see the contents detailed renovation plans for my house. New kitchen layouts, paint swatches, flooring samples, notes about converting the old lady's sewing room to a home office. Old lady, I was 67, not 97, but the most damning evidence came accidentally. I was in the garden one afternoon when I overheard Thomas and Stephanie talking on the patio, unaware of my presence behind the tall rose bushes. How long do you think we need to wait before suggesting she move to Sunny Pines? Stephanie asked. Give it time, Thomas replied. Once we're settled and she sees how cramped it is, she'll come around to the idea. The real estate agent said we could get a good price for this place once it's updated. Your mother is more stubborn than you said she'd be. She'll adjust. Eventually she'll realize it makes more sense for her to be somewhere with people her own age and for us to have the house. It's too big for just her anyway. I felt physically ill. They never intended this to be temporary. They were planning to push me out of my own home and sell it. That evening, I found Margaret alone in the kitchen. I'd been avoiding direct confrontation with her, but now I needed answers. Margaret, I began cautiously, did you know what Thomas and Stephanie were planning when you all moved in here? She looked at me for a long moment, then, surprisingly, her expression softened. Honey, I told them it was wrong from the start. Stephanie has always had big ideas, and your son doesn't have the spine to stand up to her. When they sold their apartment— They what? I interrupted. Sold it. About a month ago. Got a good price too, from what I heard. The pieces were falling into place now. No wonder they had brought so much stuff. No wonder Thomas was so insistent. They had nowhere else to go because they had deliberately eliminated their options. I spent that night sleepless, a hollow feeling in my chest where my heart should be. My own son, my only child, the boy I had nursed through chickenpox and taught to ride a bike, the young man I had helped through college. He was planning to take my home from me. By morning, my sadness had hardened into resolve. This was not going to happen. Not to me. Not in my house. I may be older, but I'm far from helpless. The next day, while the family was occupied with their various activities, I made 3 important calls. First to my dear friend Susan, who happened to be a retired attorney specializing in elder law. They have no legal right to stay if you want them out, she assured me, after I explained the situation. It's your house, Elnora. You own it outright. You can evict them with proper notice if necessary. Next, I called my financial advisor to ensure all my accounts and assets were secure and solely in my name. I updated my will and power of attorney documents, removing Thomas as my primary beneficiary and medical decision-maker. It broke my heart to do it, but I needed protection. Finally, I called my brother Frank in Ohio. We hadn't been particularly close since Harold died, but he listened without interruption as I poured out the whole sordid story. I'll be there tomorrow, he said firmly. Pack a bag. You're coming to stay with me while we sort this out. No, I replied. I'm not leaving my house. That's exactly what they want. Then I'm still coming. You shouldn't face this alone. Over the next few days, I meticulously documented everything. Every conversation, every incident, every expense since they moved in. I took photos of the changes they had made without permission. I gathered mail addressed to them, proving their residence elsewhere. I also reconnected with friends I'd been too embarrassed to see since the invasion began. Barbara offered her garage apartment as a backup plan if things got ugly. My bridge club ladies formed a protective circle around me, checking in daily and offering support. All the while, I watched Thomas and Stephanie continue their campaign. They introduced new furniture, they rearranged rooms, they talked around me rather than to me. They treated my home as their own and me as an inconvenient guest. It was painful to admit that I had enabled Thomas's behavior his entire life. When he failed classes in high school, I made excuses for him. When he dropped out of college the first time, I financially supported him until he decided to return. When his first marriage failed, I never questioned his version of events. I had always believed that supporting him unconditionally was my job as a mother. Now I realized that I had failed to teach him responsibility, respect, and honesty. My unconditional love had become a weapon he was using against me. The night before my planned confrontation, I sat in my garden alone, whispering to Harold's spirit among his roses. I don't want to lose our son, I confessed to the night air. But I can't let him do this. The roses offered no answers, but somehow I felt stronger among them. I was ready. I chose Sunday dinner for the confrontation when everyone would be present and relatively relaxed. I had prepared a special meal, Harold's famous pot roast recipe, Thomas's childhood favorite. Frank sat beside me for moral support, having arrived the previous day. After the plates were cleared and before dessert was served, I cleared my throat. I have something important I need to discuss with all of you, I began. The table fell silent. 5 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Who's this guy again? Margaret asked, gesturing to Frank. My brother, I replied. And my witness. I pulled out a folder containing copies of all the documents I had prepared with Susan's help. Thomas, Stephanie, I know the truth. I know you sold your apartment. I know you have no intention of leaving. I know you're planning to pressure me into a retirement home so you can take my house. Their expressions confirmed everything. Thomas looked panic-stricken. Stephanie's face hardened into defensive anger. Mom, that's not exactly— Let me finish, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. This is my house. Harold and I paid for it. My name is on the deed. I slid a copy across the table. I have never given permission for a permanent living arrangement. I agreed to help temporarily because I love you, Thomas, and I believed you needed help. We do need help, Stephanie interjected. No, you want my house, there's a difference. I turned back to Thomas. You lied about losing your job. You quit. You received a substantial amount from selling your apartment. You have options, but you chose deception. How did you... It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. The twins looked confused. Jack tugged at his father's sleeve. Dad, what's Grandma talking about? Thomas couldn't meet his son's eyes. The guilt was written plainly on his face. I'm giving you 2 options. I continued, sliding forward a second document. Option 1. You can stay under a formal rental agreement. I've outlined the terms: monthly rent, utilities, contribution, house rules, and a firm 6-month maximum stay. Option 2. You leave within 30 days. Either way, this deception ends now. Stephanie laughed, a cold, dismissive sound. You wouldn't throw your own grandchildren out on the street? Don't test me, I replied, holding her gaze. Family doesn't manipulate family, and these children deserve parents with integrity. This is ridiculous, Thomas finally spoke up, his voice shaking. Mom, you're overreacting. We were going to talk to you about a more permanent arrangement eventually. After you had already made decisions about my life without my input, after you had already started planning renovations. I pulled out Stephanie's notebook. After you had already started referring to me as the old lady. The color drained from Stephanie's face. You went through my things, she sputtered. In my house? Yes. To everyone's surprise, Margaret spoke up. I told you both this was wrong from the start, she said to Thomas and Stephanie. You should be ashamed of yourselves, taking advantage of your mother this way. Mom, Stephanie gasped. Don't mom me. I raised you better than this. Margaret turned to me. Elnora, I sincerely apologize for my part in this. I didn't know the extent of their plans until we were already here. Lily, who had been quiet until now, looked up with tear-filled eyes. But Daddy said Grandma wanted to go live with other grandmas and grandpas. He said she'd be happier there. My heart cracked a little at her innocent words. They had been poisoning even the children against me. Thomas broke down then. The facade crumbled completely. I'm so sorry, Mom, he sobbed, looking truly remorseful for the first time. We're drowning in debt. The apartment money's already gone to creditors. Stephanie's business failed last year, and we've been living on credit cards. I was desperate. You should have told me the truth, I said, my voice softening slightly. I would have helped you honestly, but not like this. Never like this. In the end, they chose option 1. The rental agreement was signed that night with Frank and Margaret as witnesses. 6 months, no extensions. Reasonable rent that would go into a trust for the twins' education. Clear house rules. No more talk of retirement homes or renovations. 3 months later, they moved out. Thomas had found a job at a smaller firm, and with Margaret's surprising help, they secured an affordable 3-bedroom apartment across town. The relationship with my son remains complicated. We're healing, but slowly. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend overnight. Thomas is in therapy now, working through the issues that led him to such desperate deception. I've attended a few sessions with him, and we're learning to communicate honestly. My relationship with my grandchildren has actually improved. Without Stephanie controlling access, I can invite them over directly. We bake cookies together on Saturdays, and I'm teaching them to tend the garden that their grandfather planted. Stephanie and I maintain a cordial but distant relationship. Some bridges once burned cannot be fully rebuilt, but we're civil for the sake of the children. The most unexpected outcome was my friendship with Margaret. Once we were no longer adversaries, we discovered we had quite a bit in common. She visits every Thursday now, and we play brutal, competitive games of gin rummy while sharing stories of our headstrong children. My journey to healing included therapy of my own, reconnecting with neglected friendships, a 2-week trip to the Grand Canyon that I'd always wanted to take, and rediscovering hobbies I'd set aside years ago. I joined a senior hiking club and have started painting watercolors of Harold's roses. The house is peaceful again, arranged the way I like it. Harold's photograph sits proudly on the mantel. But the silence no longer feels empty, it feels chosen. Sometimes loving your family means setting firm boundaries. Sometimes helping them means not giving them everything they ask for. Sometimes the greatest gift you can offer is the dignity of consequences for their own choices. I still love my son deeply. I always will. But I love myself too, and that was the lesson I needed to learn at 67 years old. Have you ever had to stand up to family who took advantage of your kindness? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and your peace. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find the courage to speak your truth when it matters most.